The 20th film in the MCU has finally been released, the much-anticipated Ant-Man and the Wasp, starring the lovely Evangeline Lilly and the charming Paul Rudd. We've been waiting with bated breath to see what the film has to offer, which is action-packed quantum physics awesomeness.
No doubt, no doubt.
But there's still some things in the film that make absolutely no sense. We're gonna reveal all of those to you now, but if you haven't seen it yet, there are spoilers ahead, so proceed with caution. Before we begin, hit the subscribe button to join our exclusive team and be the first notified of all Screen Rant content.
Your mom died a hero.
Janet the Invincible. The opening of the film shows a younger Janet Van Dyne and Dr. Hank Pym desperately trying to stop a missile heading to destroy a lot of people. They can't break through the metal to get inside and set it off course. One of them needs to shrink as small as possible to fit through the tight particles in the metal and ruin the missile's day. Hank Pym can't do it because his regulator is broken, so Janet, being the brave wasp that she is, sacrifices herself to save thousands of people. It's an epic and emotional scene to say the least, and the missile goes crashing down as she shoots through it. Now it's that last part that makes us question, why wasn't Janet killed in the destruction of the missile? She is still human, and even at a quantum level, you would think she would be susceptible to damage as the molecules shifted. Now we aren't getting all science-y on you, though it may sound that way. We're just simply asking, why the heck did Janet explode in the crash? Admittedly, without her survival, there wouldn't be a film, and we never want to see a Michelle Pfeiffer character die, but too bad we don't have an Albert Einstein to tell us the probability of her survival.
You're supposed to be in Moscow.
I took a detour.
The problem of age. If you've seen Interstellar by Christopher Nolan, then you know how cool it is to explore time in different realms, not to mention the intricacies of the relativity theory, which is essentially what is in play in the quantum realm in Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as the original Ant-Man. When Janet gets stuck in the quantum realm at her younger age, she technically wouldn't have aged over all the years she was there. Hank describes the realm as a reality where all concepts of time and space become irrelevant. It would even feel like she just got there the moment she returned. Upon being rescued and brought back to the real world, it would just seem as if everything had changed overnight. There would be no plotting to escape it or sending messages through Scott Lang to her family. That being said, Marvel genius Kevin Feige admits to bending a few of the rules to better suit the story and the script. Kevin explained that ultimately they decided to have an emotional reunion between Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline Lilly. He continued to say that their first instinct would get into too much sci-fi weirdness if she hadn't aged, which is something Marvel doesn't really want.
65 feet. 65.
Same strength, different size. Pym particles work by condensing the mass of the object being shrunk. By doing this, increases the amount of force and energy it puts off. The same strength is condensed into a smaller being, like the force behind Ant-Man feeling similar to the power of a bullet. With this explanation of Pym particles, why would Ant-Man's strength grow when he got larger? Wouldn't the same thing happen in reverse? When Ant-Man grows larger, how is he able to walk through the ocean like he does without feeling the pressure of all that water? Technically, if the same rules applied, his mass and strength would actually get smaller the larger he got because it would be spread out over such a large space. This also means that none of the characters should be able to catch the suitcase building when thrown to them, as the force and weight behind it would have been that of an entire building. A similar scene occurred in the original Ant-Man when Hank reveals the tank keychain he carries with him. We do kind of have to suspend our disbelief for some examples while following them for others, I guess. Maybe we should just order more popcorn instead of over-analyzing the science of it all. But where's the fun in that?
Oh, we can handle it. We're professionals.
Escaping the FBI. After the whole FBI fiasco in the middle of the forest, thanks a lot to Truth Serum, Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne are chained up in an interrogation-style room at the FBI offices. Luckily, Hope has been smart enough to stow away a bobby pin in her mouth to crack open the cuffs. They both get untied and stand up, moving about as they make the plan in plain sight of open glass windows into the hallway. There are two issues with this scene. Number one, why aren't either of them concerned with someone walking by and noticing that a superhero and her brilliant Dr. Father have gotten themselves free? Number two, would the FBI not have a camera in that room someone was watching at all times? When Ant-Man sends in ants equipped with disguises to help them escape, a collection of ants actually cover up the camera in question. What about the minutes before the ants arrive? They were already doing some pretty suspicious things like picking handcuffs. But by then it should have been too late. Someone should have noticed that they freed themselves and were dressing a lot different. We imagine the FBI would be a lot more alert about the criminals they have in custody.
It's not a keychain.
Make the building big. After Luis is injected with the truth serum by Sonny and his two cronies, he sells out the exact location of his friends to Sonny and the Ghost. In turn, Sonny reports this to the FBI to make them do the heavy lifting. With everyone after them, Scott heads home so he's not caught away from his house, while Hank and Hope shut down the lab and shrink the building. Once the lab is shrunk to suitcase size, the FBI appears directly behind it. The two face a lot of armed FBI agents with no way out and not a lot of time. It doesn't seem to make sense Hank wouldn't just enlarge the building back up again and take out all of their aggressors. We can argue that maybe it's because they didn't want to really be on the FBI's bad side, but they've done worse things than that in the past. Plus, when you found your wife after years and have a limited amount of time to save her, wouldn't you throw caution into the wind and just get a move on? We sure wouldn't be letting anyone get a hand on our suitcase-sized lab with technology to save our loved one, that's for sure. We were just waiting for Hank to press that button once more.
Now, before we start, I'd like to introduce a very special guest.
Determination versus death. For some reason, we love the bad guy Sonny Burch. Not only is the actor Walton Goggins brilliant in the role, but he seems like a guy who knows what he wants. That all being said, the guy's evil and greedy. However, Hope did kill about 6 of his men when he tried to take her money. Now, Sonny is the villain, and for that purpose, he needs to always be after the lab that can make him oodles of money, $1 billion to be exact. But we question the devotion he'd have to this task as a regular human with no extra powers. After seeing Ghost do what she did in his restaurant and Hope killing a ton of his men, wouldn't he decide that this just wasn't a game he should be playing? It's not that this makes no sense at all, we're more just questioning his reasoning. Would you put your life on the line for $1 billion? If Sonny gets taken out by any of them, he couldn't enjoy the money anyways, and clearly the dude already is loaded. Sonny's just lucky Ant-Man didn't squash him like a bug when he grew into a giant and took the lab back.
I was partners with Hank on a project called Goliath.
Ghost and Bill know too much. Another opening scene shows the lovely Wasp with her genius father, or as Luis calls him, the smartest genius he knows, discussing the possibility of Janet still being alive in the quantum realm. Hope has an extremely different haircut, which shows just how much time has passed when we see her again after she kidnaps Scott and brings him to the lab. It took Hank and Hope a very long time to create all this technology and gather the proper materials for what appears to be a ton of money from Sonny Burch. Obviously, the lab is extremely complicated with many working mechanisms that even Hank and Hope have trouble working on at times. So when Ava and Bill finally get a hold of the lab, enlarge it, and go in, how do they automatically know how to use it? And how do they automatically know how to tear apart Janet to save Ava using the lab? Perhaps Bill is such a brilliant scientist he doesn't need to be acquainted with it, but it still seems like an obvious roadblock that they never faced. How Bill and Ghost managed to avoid all this just doesn't seem to make a ton of sense.
You made it, but you went in.
Scot-free. Let's be real, Scott isn't fooling anybody. He's clearly been out and about in the world as Ant-Man, and Jimmy Woo knows about this, and he has evidence. Ant-Man is featured on every major news station in the United States. How is that not evidence enough to put him away? Now, don't get us wrong, we're so happy that isn't what happened, and Scott was able to make it back to his house in time to be playing the drums as if nothing happened. Isn't it strange, though, that someone else working with the feds wouldn't have verified that Scott was breaking his house arrest? Perhaps Jimmy has a soft spot for Scott due to Scott's card tricks and their funny interaction. But even if Jimmy lets him off while knowing, which he clearly says in an awkward end scene, someone working with Jimmy wouldn't really let that slide. It doesn't totally make sense Ant-Man can be seen all over the news and still escape the consequences. Either way, we're pretty happy that he did.
Oh no.
The probability field. Hope and Hank mention a probability field at one point when they are about to send Scott into the other realm to locate Hope's mother. Apparently, Scott and Janet are joined through something called quantum entanglement. How she reached him, we'll never know, but we won't even start on that one. So using the information Janet has passed back to Hope and Hank through Scott, they have come up with this probability field, which is now, of all times, aligning perfectly to extract Janet from the quantum realm. Hank and Hope explain to Scott the probability is so low it only aligned once every century, meaning if they mess this up, they won't have time in their lifetime, or Janet's, to save her. That's a lot of pressure, but also seems way too convenient it's lining up right now when they're all ready to go. Also, where did that measure of 100 years come from? Come on, people. We want answers to how you can save Janet without stressing us out even more.
We have to stop her.
Mid-credits scene. Ava already healed. There's always a treat at the end of a Marvel or MCU film, and this one was no different. During the end credits, a wonderful mid-credits scene played that showed Janet and Hank having built a truck-sized lab which can transport people into the quantum realm. With Ant-Man ready to go, they transport him back to get the needed material to fix up Ava. But wait, excuse us, to fix Ava? But didn't Janet come back from the quantum realm and fix Ava at the very end of the film? There was that beautifully powerful moment when Janet goes all E.T. on Ava. So why is Ant-Man going back into this super dangerous place that's hard to come out of if she's already healed? But Ant-Man actually has the worst possible thing happen. He gets stuck in the quantum realm because his journey happened at the same time Thanos from Infinity War snapped his fingers and evaporated half of our favorite heroes, Hank, Hope, and Janet being 3 of them. At least we know Ant-Man isn't vaporized by Thanos, but now he's stuck in the quantum realm for the foreseeable future. Or at least until more than likely Avengers 4.
I'm gonna make some tea.
Did you notice anything else from Ant-Man and the Wasp that made absolutely no sense? What did you find was the craziest thing from the movie that probably shouldn't have been included? Sound off in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure to subscribe to Screen Rant and give this video a like. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the movies.